Hello and welcome to Face to Face with me. I'm Desi Anwar in the program that brings the world to your screen and where we meet people who make a difference to our lives. In this episode, I talk to a writer and author of one of the world's most famous books, The History of God. She is Karen Armstrong, a former nun who left the convent disappointed in religion and yet only to spend most of her life researching and writing about religion and God. So join me on Face to Face with Karen Armstrong. Karen Armstrong, well-known writer on religions and author of best-selling book A History of God, came to Jakarta last June after 10 years of efforts by publisher Mizan to bring her to Indonesia to promote her books. 8 of Armstrong's books have been published in Indonesian, and she has many readers in the country who eagerly anticipate her visit. This British author is unique, not only because of her extensive writings and research on the main religions of the world, but because of her own spiritual experience and her desire to share her vision in putting compassion at the center of every religious belief. Even more than her books, it is the story of Karen Armstrong itself that I find interesting. Karen had a difficult and challenging life as a young woman, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Entering a convent as a nun when she was a teenager in 1962, her desire for a peaceful life and to be close to God was met with 7 years of mental and spiritual suffering, leading her to abandon both the nunnery and the God that she did not find. Karen, it's wonderful to see you. I mean, this is your first time in Jakarta, Indonesia, isn't it? How do you feel about being here?
Well, it's great, and I've had such a lovely welcome, and my publishers have been asking me to come. They keep reminding everybody for 10 years, and I suddenly thought it's time to do it now. I mean, so I'm so glad I did.
Okay, and you are one of the people that I've always wanted to interview. I mean, I've read your book, A History of God. I mean, it's a wonderful read, and of course your latest book is the 12 Steps to Compassion. Now, let's start with you, the history of Karen Armstrong, because you yourself, you have a fascinating background. You became a nun, and then you stopped being a nun, and then you started writing about religion and about God. So tell me a little bit about your history.
Well, I would never have dreamt that I would end up doing what I did. I did become a nun when I was young, only 17 years old. And I went away from it, and I thought I'd never want anything to do with religion again.
But what prompted you to want to become a nun?
Oh, nothing we do has simple motivation. Everything we do has very much mixed motivation, and partly I wanted to be wise and enlightened and to be living intensely. I looked around at, this was in the 50s, and that was a very dismal time for women, I think, in Britain, in those post-war years, the years of austerity. Women always seemed to be scrubbing and cleaning, and I thought, I want to do something more with my life. The nuns seemed to be remarkably unencumbered. I thought their minds were on higher things, and that I would get rid of all this adolescent muddle and become serene and wise and Buddha-like. And of course, it didn't happen. I was very young to take this, and the irony is that once I got into the convent, all I did was cook and clean and scrub for 6 years. But then I decided, it was very, very painful decision. I had a sort of breakdown.
While you were a nun?
While I was a nun. I found I think it was loneliness and a feeling that somehow this strictness, this coldness, had nothing to do with the gospel.